Picture this. Your service has been down for 30 minutes. Your team is scrambling, everyone's talking, but nobody's on the same page. It's chaos. Sound familiar? We've all been there. The instant messaging channels are a mess. Theories are flying around. And fixing the problem feels like trying to solve a puzzle in the dark. Once the fire is out and the service is back up, the real work begins. The post-incident review. How do you make sure this never happens again? The key is having a single unified source of truth. But building that source of truth can be just as chaotic as the incident itself. That's what we're going to tackle today. We'll explore how to run effective post-incident reviews that actually lead to improvements, not just more meetings and documents that nobody reads. Let's think about this with a metaphor. Imagine you run a massive logistics company, and one day, a huge shipment arrives completely destroyed. That's your incident. It's a big, obvious problem. The postmortem, or the post-incident review, is the investigation that follows. It's not about yelling at the driver. It's about methodically figuring out what went wrong. The first step is building a timeline. This is like gathering all the receipts and delivery slips from every single stop the truck made along its journey. You're not judging, you're just collecting facts. When did the truck leave the warehouse? When did it arrive at the first checkpoint? What was the condition of the cargo at each stop? In the tech world, this means pulling together logs, metrics, alerts, and even messages from your team chat. Every piece of data is a receipt that helps you reconstruct the journey of your system leading up to the failure. You need to know exactly what happened, second by second, without any guesswork. Once you have this detailed timeline, you can start looking for the root cause. In our logistics metaphor, you might find that the cargo was perfectly fine until a specific transfer point. Looking closer, you discover a faulty loading crane at that location. That's your breakpoint. It's the one critical moment where things went wrong. Similarly, in a software incident, you might trace the problem back to a single code deployment, a configuration change, or a sudden spike in traffic that a specific service couldn't handle. The timeline doesn't lie. It points you directly to the origin of the failure. This isn't about finding who to blame. It's about finding the precise technical reason for the breakdown. With the root cause identified, the next logical step is improvement. If the crane was faulty, you don't just fire the operator. You fix the crane. Maybe you add a new inspection process for all loading equipment. You add guardrails to prevent this specific failure from ever happening again. In our world, this translates to concrete action items. Maybe you need to add more robust testing for a certain type of code change. Perhaps you need to improve your monitoring to catch resource spikes earlier. Or maybe you need to implement automated rollbacks. The goal is to make your system stronger and more resilient, so the same class of problem is eliminated. This is how you turn a painful outage into a valuable learning experience that genuinely improves your product and your processes. Now, let's talk about the most important, and often the most difficult part of this whole process: blameless postmortems. This is a concept that a lot of companies talk about, but very few actually practice effectively. When something breaks, our natural human instinct is to find someone to blame. Who pushed that bad code? Who approved that change? But this is a trap. It creates a culture of fear where people are afraid to take risks, afraid to admit mistakes, and ultimately, afraid to innovate. A truly blameless postmortem shifts the focus entirely from people to the system. The core belief is this: humans will always make mistakes. It's inevitable. A well-designed system, however, should be resilient enough to handle those mistakes. It should make it hard to do the wrong thing and easy to do the right thing. So when an incident happens, the question is not who messed up. The question is, why did the system allow this mistake to have such a big impact? Let's go back to our timeline. The timeline is a collection of objective facts. At 10:05 a.m., developer Jane deployed commit 7b3f. That is a fact. At 10:06 a.m., CPU usage on the database server spiked to 95%. That is also a fact. A blame-oriented culture would say, Jane broke the database. A blameless culture asks, why was our deployment pipeline able to push a change that could cause a 95% CPU spike without any automated checks or warnings? Why didn't our monitoring alert us sooner? Why didn't the system automatically roll back when it detected this anomaly? You see the difference? We're not analyzing Jane's performance. We're analyzing the system's performance. The goal is to identify the weaknesses in your processes, your tooling, and your architecture. Maybe your code review process missed a critical logic block. Maybe your automated testing suite has a blind spot. Maybe your canary deployment strategy isn't effective enough. These are system-level problems, not people problems. By focusing on the system, you create a safe environment where engineers can be open and honest about what happened, which is absolutely essential for getting to the true root cause. When people aren't afraid of being punished, they'll volunteer the crucial details that help you solve the puzzle. This approach builds trust, encourages collaboration, and ultimately leads to a much more robust and reliable system. So we've talked about building a timeline, finding the root cause, and creating a blameless culture. But there rests one more piece to this puzzle that can stop all your good intentions dead in their tracks. You can have the most perfect postmortem document in the world, with a crystal clear timeline and brilliant action items. But it's just all useless if the people who need to implement those changes don't have the power to do so. Think about it. The postmortem might conclude that you need to invest in a new observability platform, or that the database team needs to spend a month refactoring a critical service. But what if the engineers on the ground can't make those decisions? What if budget is controlled by someone in a different department who doesn't understand the technical need? What if priorities are dictated by a product roadmap that leaves no room for engineering improvements? This brings us to our next big challenge, and it's a critical one: identifying who actually has the power to change the production environment. It's not always the person who wrote the code. Understanding the real organizational structure, the informal power dynamics, and the decision-making processes is key to turning your postmortem action items into actual change. In our next video, we're going to dive deep into this topic. We'll explore how to map out these power structures and how to effectively advocate for the changes your system needs to thrive. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.